Hello, everyone. Welcome to the session of Plant Kingdom Theory Part 3. And today's lecture is about pteridophytes. Disclaimer. And today's lecture learning objective to identify the feature of pteridophytes. To understand that the vascular plant body always refers to the sporophyte. This is very important point. So with the help of today's lecture, we will able to understand that vascular plant body always refers to the sporophyte. Able to understand the evolution of seed habit. And what we are going to study about today, pteridophytes. Then we will have a summary of today's lecture. There will be some NCERT based questions, keynotes, and some interesting question that you will solve with your own. So without wasting any time, let us start today's session. Pteridophytes are one of the oldest families of plant in the plant kingdom, right? This is one of the oldest families of plant in the plant kingdom. It means that when the plants started evolving on the earth, the first vascular plants were the pteridophytes. Amphibious plants were also there, and this bryophytes were not the first vascular plant because they do not possess any vascular tissue. But these pteridophytes, which has been developed from the bryophytes, they do possess these vascular tissue. And that is why they are considered as the oldest families of the plants. They are substantially older than angiosperm in the terms of evolution. Angiosperms were the flowering plant and they evolved very late. Okay? But these pteridophytes are considered as an older than angiosperms as well as gymnosperms. They were among the earliest real plants to adapt to the land life. Okay, amphibious plant. Bryophytes were considered as the amphibious plant because they grow to the moist, damp places. They grow to the moist, damp places, and also where there is a streams of water. So the water is a very, very essential for them. They cannot survive without water. Yes, the pteridophyte also requires the water. They also require water, but not in that sense like the bryophytes, because these pteridophytes now shifted totally to the land. These plants were totally growing in the land area, okay? And they have vascular tissue. They have xylem and phloem in their vascular bundles. So the water is not much like there is a requirement, but is not as important factor as we see in the case of bryophytes. If you compare both the plants, bryophytes and pteridophytes, okay? And some of these plants have the ornamental as well as medicinal value. Okay. Some of the pteridophytes are grown in our home. Like we grow ferns. Here you can see the figure C, ferns that we grow in our barrel in our home because they are very beautiful plants. Okay. They are beautiful plants and that is why they are grown as an ornamental plant. Some of the pteridophytes do have some medicinal value. So they are used as a medicinal plant, right? So here we can see the 4 different types of pteridophytes. We can see the Selaginella. The first one is the Selaginella. The second one is the Equisetum. Equisetum. The third one is the fern, and the fourth one, that is the D figure, that is the Salvinia. This is the aquatic pteridophyte. Salvinia is the aquatic pteridophyte. It is totally found in the aquatic environment. So here are the 4 different types of pteridophytes. We will study more detail about these pteridophytes in today's lecture. And then you will be able to know the different, some more plants of the pteridophytes. Here the pteridophytes includes the 2 main categories of the plant, that is the horsetail and the ferns. Okay, like we have read about bryophytes, that they are having the 2 main category, liverworts and mosses. In the same way, the pteridophytes include horsetails and ferns, right? Okay. Now we will talk about some of the general characteristics of pteridophytes. Pteridophytes are used as a medicinal purpose and as a soil binders. So we know these pteridophytes because they are very good soil binders. They bind the soil because their roots go deep into the soil and they hold the soil tightly. So they are known as soil binders, right? They are also providing some medicinal value. So they have such an importance in the medicines. Okay. They are used as a medicinal purposes. They are also frequently grown as an ornamental. They are grown as an ornamental plants because some of the plants are very showy, very beautiful. Evolutionarily, they are the first terrestrial plants to possess vascular tissue. If we see the plants on the basis of evolutionary characteristics, then you see that this is the first plant that they are having the vascular tissue. Vascular tissue means the xylem and phloem. So these xylem and phloem are present inside the vascular bundles of pteridophytes. So here you can see fern vascular bundle. This is the showing one of the vascular bundle. This is one of the vascular bundle of fern plant. What you see? Phloem and xylem. Xylem is present in the center. You can see the large cells, and the phloem is surrounding the xylem, right? In the case of xylem, what cells are present? Tracheids. Tracheids are there. Generally, the 4 components are there. In the case of angiosperm, tracheid, vessels, xylem parenchyma, and xylem fibers. But here, the vessels are not present. Only the tracheids are there, right? And what you see in the case of phloem here, the phloem cells, right? So always remember, the first vascular plant are pteridophytes. Pteridophytes are found in the cool, damp, and shady places. They are also shade-loving plants, like we see in the case of bryophytes. They grow at a cool, damp, and shady places. Some may flourish well in the sandy soil condition. Some of the pteridophytes also, they can grow in sandy soil condition. Sand means the coarse soil particles. In bryophytes, the dominant phase in the life cycle is the gametophytic plant body. We have read about that is the gametophyte. They are having their main plant body as a gametophyte. Main plant body as a gametophyte because the reproductive structures develop on the gametophyte plant body only. And the sporophyte is totally dependent upon the gametophyte. Here we have seen in the case of bryophytes. But what about the pteridophytes? pteridophytes. The story totally get changed in the case of pteridophytes. In the case of pteridophytes, the main plant body is sporophyte. Sporophyte means the diploid plant body. It means that the main plant body of the pteridophyte is diploid in nature. Diploid in nature, right? And that is considered as a sporophyte. Sporophyte. Plant which is differentiated into the true root, stem and leaves. Here, in the case of pteridophyte, they are having true roots, true stem and true leaves. What about in the bryophytes? Bryophytes, root-like structure, stem-like structure, leaf-like structure. So here you can see a lot of difference in the case of pteridophyte. Yes, they are not, though they grow in the cool, damp and shady places, but they are not called as amphibians of the plant kingdom because water is not as important as in the case of bryophytes, because the water should always be there in their surrounding, because they absorb water from their general body surface. But what about in the case of pteridophytes? They are having well-defined roots that can absorb water from the soil. Roots can absorb water from the soil. So water is not very important. Okay. But yes, these plants are not having much cuticle-like covering on their leaf. So they get the sunlight. If they grow in a very open sunlight, so they cannot survive because the sunlight is very, very harsh to them. So as they are not having the covering of the cuticle on their leaf, so they grow on the cool, damp and shady places, but they can absorb their water from the soil. It is not like bryophytes that they are absorbing water from their general body surface. So this is the difference in the case of bryophytes and pteridophytes. That is why they are not called as a amphibians of the plant kingdom. You will understand more. And one more thing, in the case of bryophytes, water was very, very important for the process of sexual reproduction. Water was very, very important for the sexual reproduction. And if the water is not present, there will be no sexual reproduction in the case of bryophytes, and ultimately, slowly the plant will die off there. In the case of pteridophytes, the plant will not die because of the scarcity of water, because they can absorb the water from the soil. And what about the sexual reproduction? Yes, they do require water for the sexual reproduction, but in a very different way. In a coming slide, we will get to that point. Okay, then you will understand. Now, sporophylls and the cones in pteridophytes, very, very important. Okay, so pay attention. These organ means the sporophylls and the cones in the case of pteridophytes, they possesses well-differentiated vascular tissue. First point, the organs possesses well-differentiated vascular tissue, xylem and phloem. In pteridophytes, sporophylls are specialized leaves that bear sporangia. So what are sporophylls? Sporophylls, wherever the term phylls come, it means the leaf. Okay, phylls means leaf. And sporo means spore-bearing leaf. The leaf that bears spores on it, that is called as sporophylls, right? So that is why it is mentioned here, specialized leaves. These leaves are special leaves that bear sporangia. And inside the sporangia, there is a presence of spores. So these sporangia, okay, they are having small chambers, and inside these chambers, spores are present. Spores are present. These chambers bears spores in it. The leaves in the pteridophytes are smalls. Okay, but so in the pteridophyte there are so many members: Lycopodium, Selaginella, ferns, right? Equisetum, Salvinia, Azolas. There are many pteridophytes. Okay, and you see different arrangement in the different types of pteridophytes. Now here it is one of the example. Selaginella, very important member of the pteridophytes. Now, if you see the leaf of this particular plant, the leaves in the pteridophyta are small, very small, and that is why they are called as microphylls. Microphylls, as in Selaginella. In the case of Selaginella, the leaves are very small, so they are called as microphylls. Again, I am telling you, phylls means leaf and micro means small leaves. Coming to the next type of leaf, macrophylls. Phylls, leaf, and macro means large leaves. So large leaf you see in the case of ferns, but small leaves you see in the case of Selaginella, right? Microphylls you see in the case of Selaginella, macrophylls in the case of ferns. Now, in some cases, sporophylls may be a distinct compact structure. Now, these phylls-like structure, they are very compactly packed, and they form the strobili or cone-like structure. Strobili or cone-like structure in the case of Selaginella and Equisetum. Selaginella and Equisetum. Now, these strobili and cones, what these structures are? These are the spore-bearing structures. Strobili or cones are the spore-bearing structures. Here you can see some of the leaves. Now here, this is the ventral surface of the fern. What you see? Small dot-like structure. Small dot-like structures. These structures are actually the spore-bearing structures, that is called as sporangia. That is called as sporangia. This is sporangia is present on the leaf, and that is why this leaf is called as sporophylls. So different types of ferns you can see how the sporophylls are arranged, right? You can see. Now, this is the cone-like structure. This second structure, this is the cone-like structure. Sporophylls that are compactly arranged, and they are forming the strobili or the cone-like structure, right? These are the sporophylls that are not forming any cone-like structure. So ferns are not having any cone-like structure. But yes, Selaginella and Equisetum, their sporophylls are compactly arranged and they form the cone-like structure. Gametophytic structure in the case of pteridophytes. The sporangia produces spores by the meiosis in the spore mother cells. Very important. What is the main plant body in the case of pteridophyte? Sporophyte. What is the ploidy nature of this sporophyte? Diploid, 2 in number. Remember? Now, the leaf of this pteridophyte is again, they are also having the diploid in nature. Diploid in nature. Okay? But in their sporangia, they are having spores formation by the process of meiosis. So these spores become what? Haploid in nature. These spores becomes haploid in nature. And how many spore mother cells formed spores? 4 spores. Each spore mother cell form 4 spores, right? Right? 4 spores. And they are haploid in nature. The spores germinate to give rise to inconspicuous, small but multicellular spores. Okay, the spores will germinate and it will form a inconspicuous, not very like prominent one. Inconspicuous, which is not easily you are able to see, right? And they are very small but multicellular structure. So spores are free living, mostly photosynthetic, thalloid gametophyte called prothallus. Now this structure is somewhat you have seen in the case of bryophyte, that is the protonema. Protonema, you have read about protonema, right? So here, this is spores, which is coming from the previous slide we have seen in the case of sporangia. Sporangia, they bear the spores. Now these spores, when fall on the suitable substratum, they germinate and they give rise a photosynthetic thalloid, but it is a gametophyte. Gametophyte means haploid. It is haploid. So they can do the process of photosynthesis as well. And that particular structure is called as prothallus. Very, very important point. These gametophytes require cool, damp, shady places to grow. Now this prothallus one, they require cool, damp and shady places to grow. So here you can see heart-shaped prothallus-like structure. Heart-shaped prothallus-like structure, and they bear reproductive organ. They bear the reproductive organ, right? You can see archegonium and antheridium. Antheridium, that is the male reproductive organ, and archegonium, that is the female reproductive organ. Female reproductive organ, right? In the female reproductive organ, you can see there is an egg. And in the case of antheridium, what is released is sperm. What is released is sperm. And they are present on the lower surface of the prothallus. Lower surface of the prothallus. And these prothallus, they require cool, damp and shady places. Now you understand why? Because the sperm has to released from the antheridium and they have to reach to the archegonium. Archegonium, right? So the place is not very far away. See where the archegonium and where the antheridium, you can understand here. So this arrow is coming from this particular point. Means the archegonium is present here. And the antheridium, it is present at the lower surface. So when the sperm is released, it will move with the help of water. So water is required at this particular point. Or you can see a small film of water. Film of water means a small surface of water or availability of water is sufficient. It is not required as in the case of pteridophytes. Bryophytes, right? So now you understand this structure, prothallus, that is a very unique structure for the pteridophytes. Okay? Protonema, don't forget or don't get confused. Protonema, bryophytes, prothallus, pteridophytes, right? Both are gametophytes. Pteridophytes are restricted to the certain places. We do not see pteridophytes growing every places. They are not very frequent growing plants. So today we will understand why so. Pteridophytes like forms are restricted to certain places. Gametophyte stage, the prothallus require cool, damp and shady environment to grow. Okay, they require cool, damp and shady environment to grow. And if the cool, damp and shady environment or the availability of water is not present, then there will be no sexual reproduction, right? So water is essential for fertilization. Further, the limiting their distribution to regions with the sufficient moisture. And that is why pteridophytes are not grown everywhere. They are grown where there is a availability of water. They require water for their general survival like any other plant require. Like angiosperm also require water. They cannot grow without water. But for the reproduction, angiosperm do not require water. Hmm? Only some of the aquatic plant and their number is very, very less. Only 30 genera are reported in the case of angiosperm that they require water for their pollination purposes. But in the case of pteridophytes, yes, they require water for the sexual reproduction, because just now we understand that the antheridia, which is released from the antheridium, okay, they swim in the water and reaches to the female reproductive organ, archegonium, where the egg is present, and there the fertilization takes place, right? So water is essential for fertilization. Sperm must swim through a film of water to reach the egg, making areas with a sufficient moisture crucial for their reproductive success. So, if this water is not present, if the film of water is not present, then what will happen? Hmm? Then there will be no reproduction. Even some moisture is also sufficient for their movement of the sperm. It is not always that a much water is required. Okay. So again, this figure help you to understand that at this particular stage, there is a requirement of water. Now you understand why they are not called as amphibians of the plant kingdom. They require water for sexual reproduction, but they are not amphibious plants. Hmm? They can absorb water for their general metabolic activities with the help of roots, and that could conduct to the shoot part with the help of xylem and phloem, right? Now, reproduction in pteridophytes. So, this is the life cycle of a fern. This is a very, very important figure. And with the help of this figure, we will able to understand what are the sporophytic generation, what are the gametophytic generation, and what are the haploid and diploid stages. Okay. So the gametophytes bear the male and female sex organs called antheridia and archegonia. So this is the gametophyte. But we will start our life cycle from this, which is a well developed fern plant. You see the fern plant? It look like this. This is the mature sporophyte that is called 2N, that is diploid in nature, right? So this is the frond of, or you can see the leaves of the fern. This is the rhizome structure, and from there you can see lot of roots are emerging out. Hmm? And this rhizome is actually a type of stem only. Okay. Now you know that leaves are having the sporophylls. The leaves of the ferns are called as sporophylls. Hmm? Why they are called as sporophylls? Because the sporangia are attached to this leaf, and that is why it is called as sporophylls. Now here you can see the sporangia. Okay, this is the sorus structure, the dot like structure which we have seen in our earlier slide. Dot like structure on the lower surface of the leaf, that is called as sorus, and inside sorus there are many sporangium. One sporangium is shown here. You can see this is a sporangium. This is a stalk like structure which is attached to the leaf. Now in the sporangium there is a spore mother cell which undergo meiosis. How many spores are formed? 4 spores from each spore mother cell. From each spore mother cell, 4 spores are formed. Now, when this sporangium dehisces means it get rupture. It wall get rupture, and all the spores are released in the atmosphere. Now, some of the spores goes to a suitable substratum which is having a lot of moisture. So it get absorbed and it can germinate. Now here you can see it can germinate. Now this will form a multicellular heart-shaped structure which is called as prothallus. And this prothallus is called as mature gametophyte. Actually, these spores are called as Gametophyte, the blue structure, the blue arrow, this whole blue arrow. Here you can see these are the gametophyte stage. From the spore only, the gametophyte stage is there. Now the spore germinate, it form a multicellular structure, and the full grown gametophytic structure is called as prothallus. Now the lower surface of the prothallus, two reproductive organs are there, two types, male and female. The male one is called as antheridium and the female one is called as archegonium. Archegonium, they are having egg. Inside the archegonium, there is one single egg. Now, in the case of antheridium, many sperms are there. These sperms are flagellated. And they, with the help of water, moves to the archegonium neck region and enter inside this archegonium and fertilize the egg. Now, as the egg get fertilized, again, what structure is formed? Diploid zygote. As the zygote is formed, it is considered as a sporophyte structure. It is considered as a diploid sporophyte structure. Now, here you can see this zygote will form a structure, a new sporophyte. And what you see here, the gametophyte, the prothallus, from the prothallus only, you can see the sporophyte is coming out. So again here, the same phenomena which we have read in the case of bryophytes. Okay, this sporophyte is parasite on this gametophyte, right? It is taking nourishment. Once it gets established, it can make their own food. But initially, it is taking nourishment from this prothallus only, right? And later on, it can form this leafy fern plant. So the gametophyte bear the male and female sex organ considered as antheridia and archegonia. Water is required for the transfer of antherozoid coming from the antheridium. So water is required here. And gamete released from the antheridia to the mouth of archegonia. They reaches to the mouth of archegonia. So very important point here. Most pteridophytes have biflagellate antherozoids, as we have seen in the case of bryophytes also. Biflagellated antherozoid. Examples, Lycopodium and Selaginella. They are having biflagellated antherozoid. Whereas multiflagellated in the case of Marsilia, aquatic pteridophytes. Very important point. You must remember this. Fusion of male gamete with the egg present in the archegonium result in the formation of zygote. So here, what is formed? Zygote. After the fertilization, what is formed? Zygote. And zygote thereafter produce multicellular, well-differentiated sporophyte. So here you can see this structure. Differentiated sporophyte, which is the dominant phase of the pteridophyte. So the pteridophytes is having the dominant phase, your sporophyte. But the gametophyte stage is not prominent as we have seen in the case of bryophytes. There, in the case of bryophytes, the prominent phase of the life cycle of the bryophyte was the gametophyte. Just opposite. Now let us see the spores of pteridophytes. In maturity, the pteridophytes, all the spores are of similar kind. Such plants are called as homosporous. There are some of the plants in the case of pteridophytes that are having only one type of spores. And that is called as homosporous. That plants is called as homosporous. Genera like Selaginella and Salvinia, which produces two kind of spores. Now see here, they are producing two kinds of spores. The large one is called as macrospores. The small one is called as microspores. Right? And that is why such plants are called as heterosporous. Heterosporous. Right? So you must remember what is the difference between the homosporous and heterosporous. Some of the pteridophytes always produce only one type of spores, that is called as homosporous, as we have seen in the case of fern. The life cycle just now we have seen in the case of fern, homosporous. But in the case of Selaginella and Salvinia, they produces two kind of spores: macro, that is the large one, and the micro, that is the small one. The megaspores and the microspores. The large one is called as the megaspores and the small one is called as the microspore. Germinate to give rise the female and male gametophyte respectively. So just now we have seen in the case of fern that they give rise to the prothallus. They give rise to the prothallus. And the prothallus bears both the male and female reproductive organ, Antheridia and Archegonia, right? But here in the case of heterosporous, Selaginella and Salvinia, they are having megaspores. Now, when the megaspores is released, it germinate, it form a prothallus, but it will give rise only female reproductive organ Archegonium. On its prothallus, only Archegonium will be there, right? And they are having the microspores also. When this microspores will released, it will germinate and it will give rise to the male gametophyte, male prothallus, and there only Antheridia will be there, and that will form the male gamete there, right? Two things you have to remember. The female gametophyte in these plants retain on the parent sporophyte for the variable periods. So here you can see Lycopodium, homosporous. See, this is the sporangia. This is the leaf-like structure and this is the sporangia. So all the spores are of same size. The minute dot-like structure, you can see all the spores are of same like. This is the sporangia and this is the leaf-like structure. The leaf microsporophylls, only microsporophylls are there, right? This is the Lycopodium. Now in the case of Selaginella, just see, this is the real figure of, and the slide has been made from the Selaginella. Here you can see, these are the larger one. These are the larger one. Here, larger one. Megasporangium. Megasporangium, and that bears megaspores. Now here you can see the sporangia that are having very minute small spores present in the microsporangium. So when this megaspore will be released in the soil, or when it comes out from this sporangium, go to the soil, it germinate and it form a prothallus, and in that prothallus only Archegonium will be there. And when this microspore will be released, it will again form the prothallus, but there only Antheridium will be. Okay, this is the difference. Seed habit in pteridophytes, very important point in the case of pteridophytes. Seed habit. So here you can see the seed habit. We will get to this point. Now in pteridophyte, the seed habit refers to the evolutionary trend where the female gametophyte is retained within the megasporangium. Where you see seeds in the case of angiosperm, the seeds are present in the fruit, and the fruit is present earlier. The fruit before fertilization, what was that? Ovary. That was ovary, and inside the ovary, the seeds are present. Ovule transformed to the seed and ovary transformed to the fruit. Where this ovary is present, it is a part of the female reproductive organ. Okay, flower. Now come to the pteridophytes. Now you will understand. They are having the female gametophyte, female prothallus that bears archegonium. That bears archegonium. Compare it with the female reproductive organ, pistil or the carpel. Pistil or the carpel, archegonium. Inside this pistil or archegonium, what is present? Ovule. And inside ovule, what is present? Egg. Coming to the pteridophytes, female gametophyte, archegonium. Inside archegonium, what is present? Egg. Now Antheridium comes and fertilize the egg. What is formed then? Zygote. And when zygote divide, what is formed? It sporophyte. It forms the sporophyte. So see here, the seed habit refers to the evolutionary trend where the female gametophyte is retained within the megasporangium. The female do not get released, but it is retained in the megasporangium. The egg is retained in the megasporangium. The development of the zygote in the young embryos take place within the female gametophytes. The embryo formation is taking place within the female gametophyte. And this structure lead to the seed-like structure. So seed is also forming inside the female reproductive organ. As we see in the case of pteridophyte, the female gametophyte captures the zygote, means the zygote is present in the female gametophyte, and later it divide and redivide to form the young embryo. This event is a precursor of the seed habitat. Now, we are not saying that the seed is forming in the pteridophyte, but it is a precursor of the seed habit. This shows that how the seed habit came to existence. This shows that how the plants evolve to the gymnosperm and angiosperm from these pteridophytes only, na? From these pteridophytes only, the plants evolves to form the angiosperm, and this seed habit we can see in the case of in the pteridophytes, right? So this event is precursor of the seed habit, considered as an important step in the evolution. Seed habit is linked to the phenomena of heterospory. This is not comes in the homospory. It always comes to the heterospory, where the two types of spores, microspores and megaspores, are produced. So these are the very, very important point you must remember regarding the pteridophyte seed habit. Heterospory, homospory. Classification of pteridophytes. The pteridophytes are further classified into 4 classes. We are having 4 different classes in the case of pteridophytes. What are that? The first one is the Psilopsida. Psilopsida. This is a very primitive. Type of pteridophytes, and that is called as Psilopsida. The example of Psilopsida is the Psilotum. The second one is the Lycopsida. Example, Selaginella and Lycopodium. The two examples are there, Selaginella and Lycopodium. Third one is the Sphenopsida. Equisetum, horsetail. If you see the structure of the equisetum, it looks like a horsetail. This is the common name. Pteropsida, the 4th class, Pteropsida. Examples are, these are the fern actually. These are the 3 different ferns. Dryopteris, Pteris and Adiantum. These are the 3 different ferns. So the fern, it can be asked in the examination, which of the following 4 class is having ferns? Psilopsida, Lycopsida, Synopsida and Pteropsida. So the Dryopteris, Pteris and Adiantum are all the different types of fern. So this Pteropsida bears the fern, right? And it could be asked, which of the class can be considered, is it considered as a horsetail? Sphenopsida, considered as a horsetail. So here is the figure that is showing the 4 different classes. Psilopsida, you can see the xylotum does not having a leaf, very minute paper-like leaf is attached to the stem part. Selaginella, you can see this, Selaginella. Okay, commonly it is called as club moss or spike moss. These common names are very, very important. Sometimes it can be asked in the match the column type of question. So you must remember this name. Okay, Lycopsida, that bears the Selaginella. One of the figure is here. Sphenopsida, that bears the equisetum. You can see the equisetum. This is the cone. They are not having sporophylls, but the sporophylls are there, but it is very compactly arranged in the form of strobili or cones. So the equisetum is having the cone-like structure. Pteris, it is one of the example of the Pteropsida. Life cycle of pteridophytes. So this is, we have already covered up in one of the slide. Pteridophytes like ferns have the distinct life cycle involving the alternation of generation. So this point is very, very important to understand. Alternation of generation. What is alternating here? The sporophyte. This peach color arrow from here to here, it is representing the sporophyte. The sporophyte give rise to the gametophyte, and gametophyte again give rise to the sporophyte. So these two generations are alternating one after the other, and that is called as alternation of generation. Both the haploid gametophyte and the diploid sporophyte phase are independent and free living. It is independent and free living. This prothallus, it is free living. This fern, main sporophyte plant body, this is also free living, right? And this life cycle is called haplodiplontic. Both are independent and free living, and both are important as well, right? So that is why this type of life cycle is called as haplodiplontic type of life cycle. Then what you will say about the bryophytes? Bryophyte, the main plant is the gametophyte, that is haploid. And that is why that type of life cycle is called as haplontic. Yes, we have read about this in the case of metagenesis, polyp and medusa. But that is not a true type of alternation of generation. That is false type of alternation of generation. False type of alternation of generation. Why? Because both are diploid. Right? Here you can see one phase is haploid and another one is diploid. So this is the true type of alternation of generation. So now we will have a summary. Pteridophytes include horsetail and ferns. Pteridophytes comprising the ferns and their allies and are more advanced with the true vascular tissue. So pteridophytes are quite advanced than the bryophytes because they possess vascular tissue, xylem and phloem. The sporophyte bear sporangia that are subtended by the leaf-like appendages called sporophylls. And gametophytes are represented by the photosynthetic thalloid structure that is called as prothallus. These points are very, very important. Sporophylls, prothallus, homosporous, heterosporous, seed habit. Please do remember this. They are well developed root, stem and leaves, and they also reproduce through spores rather than the seeds. So we will have now some NCERT based question. Explain the alternation of generation in pteridophytes, highlighting the role of both the sporophyte and gametophyte phases. How does this differ from the life cycle of bryophytes? So in pteridophytes, alternation of generation involves the two distinct phases. One is the diploid sporophyte and another one is the haploid gametophyte. We have seen this. The sporophyte, which is a dominant phase, produces spore through the process of meiosis. It produces spore through the process of meiosis. No, the sporophyte helps to form gametes. No, it is absolutely wrong. Sporophyte helps to form the spores, and these spores germinate to give rise to the prothallus. Prothallus, that is the gametophytes phase, that will form the gamete. That will form the gamete. These spores germinate to form the gametophyte, which produces gamete, sperms, and egg via mitosis. So gametes are formed by mitosis, but your gametophyte phase, that is the prothallus, that is formed by the spores. That these spores are produced by the meiosis process. The fusion of these gametes creates the diploid zygote that develops into the sporophyte, the resting cycle, restarting the same cycle. The bryophytes, in bryophyte, the gametophyte is the dominant phase, that is the persistent phase, while the sporophyte is a small and dependent on the gametophyte. Dependent on the gametophyte. So that is why in the case of bryophyte, it is a haplontic life cycle. But in the case of pteridophyte, it is a haplodiplontic. Both are independent. So this is opposite to pteridophyte, where the sporophyte is the dominant. Next question. Discuss the significance of the spore production in the pteridophytes. How does this method of reproduction differ from the seed-based reproduction in the gymnosperm and angiosperm? Let us see the answer. Spore production in pteridophytes represent a crucial evolutionary step in the plant reproduction. So here, the spore production, significance of it. Spores are lightweight and can be dispersed over long distances by wind. They are produced in the large number, increasing the chance of survival. So they are produced in the large in numbers, and they are resistant to the harsh environmental condition. Difference from the seed plant, angiosperm and gymnosperm. Spores lack protective covering from the seed food reserve. They are not having any food reserves in it. Seeds have protective seed coat and they stored food material. Spores germinate into the independent gametophyte, whereas the seed develop directly into the sporophyte. So this is a lot of difference in the case if you compare the spores and the seeds, right? Keynotes. Here are some of the common names of the important pteridophytes. Lycopodium, it is called as club moss. Commonly, it is called as club moss. Selaginella, it is commonly called as spike moss or club moss. Adiantum, walking fern, it is called as walking fern. Equisetum, scouring rush. And Salvinia, that is called as water moss. The oldest group of pteridophytes, the spore-bearing vascular plants, are the lycophytes, including club mosses, spike mosses, and quillworts. The spores germinate. This adiantum is called as walking fern because when you see this fern, it will arise and it will droop down. It again arise and droop down. And it seems that like the fern is walking on the land, and that is why it is got the common name walking fern. The spore germinate into small heart-shaped gametophyte that is also called as prothalli or prothallus. The gametophyte has both the male and female sex organ, antheridia and archegonia. And these are some of the figures of the Lycopodium, Selaginella, and Salvinia, the aquatic fern. Some interesting question that you will solve with your own. What are the difference between the ferns and horsetail? Very important. Why the heterospory considered a significant step in the evolution of seed habit in the case of pteridophytes? And third question, what is the relationship between the development of endosperm and the seed habit, right? So these questions you can find and you can have the answer of it. So thank you very much for today's session.